Aaron, wait. Please. Promise me you'll be careful.
Pandora'S tower arrives at a time where the Wii is all but faded from memory. Had it not been for the persistent efforts of the Operation Rainfall fan campaign, it's likely the game wouldn't have seen the light of day in North America. Now that it's here, we're left with a game that couples Zelda-style dungeon exploration with thoughtful relationship dynamics. Though the controls hurt the experience sometimes, its other strengths make it worth playing. The game's real pull comes from the sympathetic Elena, a young woman suffering from a curse, slowly changing her into an unrecognizable monster. As Aaron, her lover, you have to feed Elena the hearts of beings known as the Masters in order to slow the transformation and ultimately rid her body of the curse. Taking these hearts, of course, involves violent effort. Aaron's primary tool is a large chain. Using the Wii remote or right analog stick on the classic controller, Aaron can manipulate the chain to snag distant items, whip enemies around in a wide circle, and disable specific body parts, such as legs or a sword arm. It's a clever mechanic that requires more thought than simply running and attacking. For example, multiple enemies can pose a very serious threat. Rather than trying to take them all down at the same time, it's much smarter to chain them together, disabling the entire group and letting you damage them all with each swing of your sword. Sadly, your strikes lack much sense of power. Enemies hardly react to regular attacks, making combat feel somewhat impotent. The focus on the chain largely dominates the way you play. With the controls normally used to manipulate a 3D camera tied to the combat, you've no choice but to rely on the game to frame its action. The limitations that result are constantly aggravating. Enemies are often just out of view, and the only way to get a better vantage point is to run toward them, putting you at risk. In addition to struggling with the camera, it can be a chore getting Aaron to move exactly the way you want him to. He'll inexplicably fall off ledges, for example, and the chain sometimes fails to snag a very clear grapple point well within range. By far the most difficult action is swinging. Getting Aaron to swing any other direction besides straight is maddening. You're constantly reminded that Aaron can change course while swinging from platform to platform, but this is much easier said in tutorial text than it is to accomplish with iffy controls. These issues make the action in Pandora'S tower feel awkward and out of date.
You've got to tidy up after yourself, Aaron.
Despite the camera and controls, however, the towers you explore are a treat. From beginning to end, the gradual difficulty curve always feels like it's giving you the right amount of challenge. The first tower contains few rooms and pushover enemies, while the last features a nightmarish labyrinth that requires a sturdy whipping arm and teleporting between dimensions. The environments are satisfyingly complex, but the combat never reaches the same heights. To defeat many enemies, you simply need to stun them with the chain and repeatedly hit them with the charge attack, a strategy that proves effective through the entire game. Bosses eventually fare better. At first, they practically fall over for you. After the third tower, the bosses become intricate puzzles, requiring you to figure out how and when to expose their weaknesses. The final few fights in particular challenge you to use every skill in your arsenal, making for deeply satisfying experiences. Though you spend most of your time exploring and fighting, the best moments in Pandora'S tower come from interactions with Elena. As you journey throughout the tower, she waits for you in an observatory, which acts as a home base where you can buy, create, and repair items, as well as upgrade weapons. You'll also need to treat Elena's curse, which worsens as you explore the towers. A timer in the bottom left corner of the screen is continually ticking down, and the more time that elapses, the further Elena is harmed and mutated. To prevent the condition from completely overtaking her, you'll have to return regularly to offer the hearts of creatures you've slain.
It's just that every time I eat that master flesh, I have the strangest dreams.
Having to make a trip back to the observatory while in the middle of exploring a tower sounds tedious, but every time you return and see Elena hunched over in a corner, any frustration is forgotten. She tries to hide her hideousness, ashamed of what she's becoming, but even in her worst moments, she'll ask Aaron how he's doing and how he's fared in the towers. Such selflessness, kindness, and courage creates a character that you hate to see suffer.
You know what this is? It's the vow of Ios.
You can grow Aaron and Elena's relationship by taking the time to talk to her and give her gifts. She'll occasionally offer items in return for your kindness, and you might get a better ending depending on how you treat her. While in-game rewards are an obvious motivation, you'll want to comfort Elena just because of how much pain she's in. Every time you give her a gift, you'll visibly lift her spirits.
Oh, this is wonderful.
Pandora's Tower isn't the best playing action RPG out there. Its fixed camera and control issues are often quite frustrating. Yet these issues aren't enough to completely outweigh Elena's convincing character. Her happiness is largely dependent on how much you want to get involved, and you will want to get involved, not for experience points or loot, but because the game makes you believe in her as a person. While the dungeons in Pandora's Tower provide some adventurous fun, it's the ability to heal and create joy that will stick with you the most.
Come now, girl. Eat it down.